My name is Sifo Dlamini, and I am a man of immense wealth. To the outside world, I am a successful entrepreneur, a philanthropist, a man to be admired. But today, I strip away the mask and reveal the darkness that has shadowed my every step. My wealth is not the fruit of hard work or ingenuity. It is the bitter harvest of unimaginable sin, and the price I have paid for it is greater than any fortune could ever. It began when I was in my 20s, a poor man with dreams of grandeur. My family had nothing, and I vowed never to live in poverty. One night, at a bar in the city, I met a man named Themba. He was older, dressed in expensive clothes, and surrounded by luxury. Themba could see my desperation, and he leaned in close, his voice smooth as silk. "You want this life, don't you?" he said, gesturing to his gold watch and the beautiful women at his side. "There's a way, but it's not for the faint-hearted." Desperation and greed overtook me. Themba introduced me to an underground society of wealth and power. They called themselves the Brothers of the Red Moon. To join, I had to perform a ritual, an initiation into the occult. That night, I made a pact with forces I did not fully understand. I gave up my innocence, my soul, and ultimately, the pact was simple but horrifying. To maintain my wealth, I had to lure women into my life, seduce them, and steal their underwear, a symbol of their purity and luck. The underwear was used in a dark ritual, one that transferred their blessings, their fortune, and their destiny to me. The women, unaware of the theft of their very essence, would slowly spiral into misfortune after I discarded them. But there was a catch, always a catch. The spirits warned me never to truly fall in love. Love, they said, would weaken the power of the rituals and awaken the curse hidden within them. At first it seemed easy. I was charming and handsome, and women flocked to me. I dated models, artists, and university students, always careful to end things once I had taken what I needed. The rituals worked like magic. Every time I performed them, my businesses flourished, and my bank accounts overflowed. But the women I left behind began to suffer. After I left them, they would discover they were pregnant. At first, I thought nothing of it, just a coincidence. But as time passed, I began to hear whispers. The children born from those pregnancies were not normal. They were twisted, grotesque creatures, deformed beyond recognition. One woman, Thandeka, found me years later, clutching the hand of a child whose face was hidden behind a scarf. When she pulled the scarf away, I recoiled in horror. The child's eyes were black pits, its mouth filled with sharp teeth, its skin pale and lifeless. "This is your doing," Thandeka cried. "You've cursed me and my child." I denied it, but deep down, I knew she was right. The spirits had twisted the lives of the women I used and left behind, turning their blessings into nightmares. Then I met Lerato. She was different. She wasn't drawn to my wealth or my charm. She saw through the facade. Lerato was kind, intelligent, and pure in a way that made me question everything I had done. Against my better judgment, I fell in love with her. For the first time, I hesitated to perform the ritual, but the spirits would not allow it. My businesses began to falter, and my wealth started to dwindle. The pressure grew unbearable, and one night, in a moment of weakness, I performed the ritual on Lerato. I convinced myself it was the only way to keep her safe, to keep my empire intact. I told myself I would make it up to her somehow. I was wrong. Months later, Lerato began to change. She grew pale and sickly, her once vibrant spirit fading away. Then, one morning, she came to me trembling and clutching her stomach. "Sifo," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. "I'm pregnant." I should have been happy, but dread filled me instead. I knew what would happen. I knew the curse would claim her and the child. I tried to leave her, to spare her the horrors that followed every woman I abandoned, but she begged me to stay. As her pregnancy progressed, Lerato began to experience strange symptoms. Her skin grew cold to the touch, and at night she would cry out in pain as if something inside her was tearing her apart. When the time came for her to give birth, the midwives screamed and fled the room. The child was not a child, but a monstrous being, its body contorted and unnatural. Lerato died that night, and I was left alone with the abomination I had brought into the world. I buried her with my own hands, and for the first time I felt the weight of my sins crushing me. Since Lerato's death, I have been haunted. The faces of the women I used and discarded appear in my dreams. Since Lerato's death, I have been haunted. The faces of the women I used and discarded appear in my dreams, their eyes accusing, their voices echoing with pain. The children, those twisted creations born of my greed, visit me in the dead of night. They stand at the foot of my bed, their deformed faces staring, their whispers chilling me to the bone. No amount of wealth can buy peace from this torment. My businesses have crumbled, my friends have abandoned me, and I am a shell of the man I once was. The spirits have claimed everything I stole, leaving me with nothing but regret. My final plea. I am confessing now because I can no longer live with this burden. I see no redemption for me, but perhaps my story can serve as a warning to others. Do not seek shortcuts to success. Do not trade your soul for wealth. The price is far too great. As I write this, I feel the darkness closing in. The spirits are here, their whispers louder than ever. I know my time is short. When I am gone, let this confession be my legacy, a testament to the destruction wrought by greed and the pain inflicted by one man's foolish ambition. May the women I wronged find peace. May their children, those cursed creatures, find some measure of redemption. And may the world never forget the name Sifo Dlamini, the man who traded love for wealth and paid the ultimate price. Sifo Dlamini's confession, scrawled on brittle parchment, was found in the decaying mansion he had once called home. His lifeless body was discovered sitting at his desk, his eyes wide with terror, as if he had stared into the abyss itself. The mansion was abandoned shortly after, for no one dared to enter a place so steeped in evil. But the story did not end with Sifo's death. The whisper of shadows. Years passed, and Sifo's mansion stood as a haunting monument on the outskirts of the city. Locals told stories of flickering lights seen through its cracked windows and cries echoing from its walls on moonless nights. Some claimed to have seen shadowy figures roaming the grounds, women in tattered clothes holding the hands of monstrous children. One woman, Thandeka, the same who had confronted Sifo years before, became the de facto guardian of the truth. She knew the horrors he had unleashed, and she made it her life's mission to warn others about the dangers of greed and the occult. But even she could not escape the reach of Sifo's curse. Her son, the twisted creature born of Sifo's ritual, grew more monstrous with time. His eyes were bottomless pits of darkness, and his presence drained the light and warmth from any room. Though Thandeka loved him fiercely, she could not deny the unnatural force within him. One night, she awoke to find him standing at the foot of her bed, staring at her with an intensity that froze her blood. "I hear them," he whispered, his voice unnaturally deep. "They call to me." Before she could respond, he vanished into the shadows. Thandeka never saw him again, but the whispers he spoke of began to plague her dreams. The return of the children born of Sifo's curse, abandoned and despised, began to seek one another out. Drawn by a force they did not understand, they gathered in the woods near Sifo's mansion. By day, they hid, their grotesque forms shunned by society. But by night, they roamed freely, their whispers weaving a chorus of sorrow and anger. The spirits that had empowered Sifo's rituals had bound these children to a dark purpose. They were not merely victims of the curse, they were its vessels, created to perpetuate the cycle of greed and suffering. With every passing year, their numbers grew, and their connection to the spirits deepened. One stormy night, the children converged on the mansion. Their twisted figures moved as one, their whispers rising to a deafening roar. Lightning illuminated the sky as they entered the decaying house, their presence igniting the long-dormant power within its walls. The awakening deep beneath the mansion lay a hidden chamber, Sipho's ritual room. The walls were lined with shelves of artifacts stolen from the women he had betrayed. There were tattered clothes, faded photographs, and most disturbingly, the remnants of the rituals themselves, piles of burned fabric and jars filled with strange powders. The children, drawn by an unseen force, gathered in the chamber. Their whispers grew louder, their voices blending into an otherworldly chant. The air grew heavy, and the ground trembled. The spirits, bound to Sipho's dark deeds, answered their call. A swirling vortex of darkness erupted in the center of the chamber, and from it emerged a figure, a grotesque amalgamation of the women Sipho had wronged, their faces twisted in agony, their voices screaming in unison. "We will have justice," the figure proclaimed. "Through the children, our pain shall be avenged." The children, now fully consumed by the curse, transformed into monstrous beings. Their bodies grew larger, their limbs contorted, and their eyes glowed with the fiery rage of the spirits. They poured out of the mansion, their footsteps shaking the earth. The wrath of the cursed. The children descended upon the nearby village, their whispers spreading dread and chaos. Crops withered, livestock fell dead, and the villagers were overcome with a deep, unshakable despair. The children did not harm anyone directly, but their presence alone brought ruin. Thandeka, hearing of the horrors, knew she could not stand idly by. Though she feared the curse, she returned to the mansion, determined to confront the spirits and put an end to their reign. Inside, she found the vortex still swirling, the spirits' voices echoing through the chamber. She knelt before it, tears streaming down her face. "Take me," she pleaded. "Let my sacrifice end this curse." The spirits paused, their voices softening. "Your love is pure, Thandeka, but this curse is not yours to bear." A single spirit stepped forward, its face familiar. It was Lerato, the woman Sipho had truly loved and betrayed. The only way to break the curse is to destroy the source, Sipho's legacy. The final sacrifice. Thandeka knew what had to be done. She gathered the women who had survived Sipho's betrayal, and together they burned the mansion to the ground. The fire roared,